Hello, and I thought today we could do a bit of a video on a few different things, maybe just one, depending on honestly how my editing skills go, on different types of SFX sort of looks, or things that we can do at home on a very cheap budget. For example, you can make skull wax at home with pretty much a few ingredients we all have at home. In my bag, yes, this is a Shein bag, which is only because I keep the flour in it. Skull wax is actually something we can make at home. All you need is a container to make it in. Flour is used as the building agent, so you just want to put that in. Go with really what your heart says. You basically want to put equal parts flour to equal parts Vaseline. So this is my Vaseline tub right here. You're just going to put that in to your flour mix. You're going to mix it. Now I did mix this off screen because we'd probably be here a while of me making faces at the screen, but you want to keep going until you have sort of like a batter consistency. And so this is skull wax. Now to blend it into a skin tone, all you need to add is a touch of foundation. So this is my colour, which the brand that's sitting with me is DB Medium Coverage Velvet Porcelain Ivory. And you just want to add a few drops, not too much. I did about 3ish. You just want to mix that in. So we're going to mix that in right now. I guess I'm keeping a video on this time. Okay, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see that, hang on. There we go. There we go. This is your skull wax. Right. Now what's fun about skull wax is that now you can basically do any form of woo. Now skull wax in itself is very sticky, so it can get messy. But that's skull wax. Hope that helped. I don't know. Alright, so we open up our little bruise wheel. Now, sorry I had to hiccup. You should probably have a bit of a mixing board. Now, depending on how recent you want the supposed bruising, I'll show you a more recent bruise up here, and I'll do an older one down the bottom around maybe here. Actually, no, rethink this. I'll do a recent bruise and then an older bruise on this side, and then I'll do another one here because you can see that area on the screen. Older bruises seem to rock 3 colours, so you want to aim for a bit of a purple. So you're going to go with a little bit of a purple colour, and we're just going to put that on the palette. You want to grab the tiniest bit of red. Now, these are also grease paints, so a little bit goes a long way. So what I've used is probably too much, but that's okay. I'm planning to do something else with it. So, and you want a bit of your darker red color as well. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that, and we're going to chuck them up on the board. Going to clean this up a little bit. Use proper spatulas. Using a knife is a bad idea, but it works for what I need it to. Don't take everything I do. That's literal. For older bruises, what you want to do is that you want to use colours like green. Now, bruises that tend to come up more with your green and yellow tend to be more like a few weeks or closer to healing. So we want green, we want yellow, and we want the tiniest bit of blue. We're going to grab that and put that on our wheel. So your little wheel will look like this. Alright, now to activate these a little bit more so they can spread out. Now you can use them like that, but that's a bit too much pigment. We're going to pull out our handy dandy Vaseline again. Just going to take some out we're just going to put a little bit with each one. So each one has a little bit of Vaseline. I'll work out how to do this correctly. Not this, makeup, so it's been a passion of mine. Editing and talking on camera. Alright, so let's start with the bruising. Now, you want to start with a little bit of a red. Now you mix a bit of your Vaseline into your red pigment. As you can see, that gives it more of a fleshed out colour. You don't want too much, so just wipe some off the brush. Now let's see, I'm aiming for in here. Now a lot of bruises have a lot of redness, so what we want to do is that we just want to add redness to the skin. We want the skin to look like we've had something happen. So I'm just going to close my eye a little bit, because if I do this with my eye open I might get in my eye. There we go. Now we'll grab a sponge. Any sponge will do. These are just the ones I had on hand closest to me. I just want to pat that in a little bit. There we go. Now it's looking like I had allergies. You can use the same brush you dipped in before. Now you want to take in your purple. This one's okay. Some of them you don't want to mix your brush colors too much, but since we're going for a very bruised effect, this one would be seen more as more of a recent bruise. You want to take in your purple. You want to go into that crease, and you want it, this is the part where you want to make it deeper. You really want to get that into the skin. Use your handy dandy sponge again. You're going to tap that into the skin. There we go. Tap that in. Beautiful. I'm just going to swap to a more of a puffy brush and re-go over that purple just a little bit. And you can use your fingers as well for this. Then what we're gonna do is that we're going to add just a tiny bit of this darker red to really hone in the look. There we then just use your 3 colours we've just pulled out, and you just want to darken it where you want to if you want this to look. There we go. So you should put a setting powder if you want it, just a white setting powder over it if you want it to look less Vaseline-y, more matted on the skin, but that is a bruise. There we go. Now let's do the other eye. Alright, now that we've done a deeper bruise or a more recent bruise on this side, let's do a older one. So as bruises age, they lose a lot of the redness to it. So what we're going to do, it's going to start with some green. I know, green's such a weird colour when you think of bruises. Now, as much as I would want to try to make it exact to the other side, I make no promises to myself. But first thing we're going to do is that we're just going to add a bit of green. We're going to tap that into the skin. Oh, I don't think you can see that. Let's see if we can take that darker. There we go. Now let's tap that in. Oh yeah, now everything's coming together. Now we're going to take some of that yellow. Older bruises, when they come to about a week or so after 3 days maybe, the initial, they tend to go greens and yellows with a dash of blue. So we're going to add the tiniest bit of blue in that deeper part, because that's where we want a lot of it to sit, like where a lot of that bruising is still most prominent. I just want to make sure you have it looking as, I guess, as realistic as you want it to. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please don't be using this to get people in trouble. If you're doing it to scare people, that's different. I'm kidding. But I think it's a fun little thing to do, and it's one of the trademark things to learn in SFX, because everyone wants to know how to do a bruise. Alright. Just going to mix. I'm going to grab my other brush I had earlier. I'm just going to re-go over some areas of green, only because I want to take up the bruising a little bit, because I did take it up on the other side. The part of me likes a bit of consistency. Not here. So I just want to up there and take my sponge, and I'm just going to pat that in. A little bit more yellow. Yellow is used for the lightest parts, so it's where the bruise is pretty much healed and we're leaning back into that natural skin tone. Tiny bit of blue. Out there. Yep. I'm going to pat that in one more time. And there you go. 2 different kinds of bruises, a more recent one and an older one. So I'll close my eyes so you can have a bit of a look. There we go. Hope that helped, I guess. Alright, so now we're going to, I'll probably do this in multiple videos if I don't clump this all together. If this is all together, ignore this part. If it isn't, it's this part, whatever. 3, 4, I don't know. We're going to use grease paint to make a bruise now. Now you can buy this anywhere. If you're going to use it on other people, I do recommend probably getting a safer one, or just making sure there are no allergies. These are grease paints, which means when it gets hot, it gets very greasy. But they do work well for makeup, especially for yourself. Now, bruises. As you can see here, these colours are a bit bright for a bruise, but they do work. If you're going for a deep, I have a little palette right here. I'll use this. This is old, so it's fine. This is my checkerboard piece. I brought it for spiritual stuff and it broke, so now I use it for makeup or whatever I need it to be for. We want a little bit of red. We're going to put some red on. Let's see. We want, I don't know how to do things in frame yet. I'm going to wipe my brush off a little bit. We're going to add a little bit of this darker red. Definitely purple. Again, older bruises, you want dark colors. We'll take the tiniest amount of black. We probably won't need it, but I'll see how the colors turn out first. Then if you're using it to make more younger bruises, we'll need blue. So this is what our palette looks like so far. We need green, light green, not dark green. We can probably do a splash of dark if needed, so we'll just probably take that to the side over there. And yellow. Just hang on, let me put that down. So those are my colors I'll be working with, and let's start with a darker bruise. So we're going to grab our brush And we're going to start with a red. Now I'm going to probably do it here. Only because I already did my eyes and I took them off, so I'll do about here. Should have had a mirror next to me. I'm going to use the camera light. So we want to make a bit of a bruise. Bruises aren't symmetrical and they aren't even, so they can be a little mismatched as long as it's not too over the top. Now this is a little pink, but that's okay. You just want to blend it out on the edges because you want that to blend into the skin a little bit. Fun zombie brain right there I could make. But that's not what we're doing. You want to take your darker red. You just want to darken out some bits in it. Not too much. Just want to start adding depth into the bruise. You want it to look like something's happened. Now you're going to take a bit of purple. I don't think I like this. It's too light, but that's okay. We'll see what we can do first. Just trying to darken it up. I'm going to mix a bit of the black and the purple. I'm going to swap it to more of a stipple brush. Oh yeah, now everything's coming together. There we go. So I've just added some black to it, just so we can darken that up a little. There we go. That doesn't look good. Definitely looks like something. There we go. So if you're going to use normal paints, you can practically, as long as deeper bruises, go with reds, a lighter red, a dark red, a purple. If they aren't dark enough, just add the tiniest bit of black. And because you just want to darken the colour up a little bit without changing the tones in it too much. I look like a character trying to hide a zombie bite, just... No, you don't see anything. Anyway, so for using grease paints for so that was the darker one, not my greatest work, but you know what, it's for what I was going for, it's actually really good. Or I'm too much of a critic myself. I see more imperfections in my work than the positives. Working on it. So when you want to make a lighter bruise, using lighter colours probably works better. So we're going to start with green. We're going to use mine more of a stipple brush. So this is a blending brush specifically, a buff blender, and it actually works really well. If you do end up using makeup brushes, they are harder to clean, so it is better to just, well, we use makeup brushes normally, don't separate them unless you have a really good cleaner. Oh yeah, everything's working out. There we go. I just realised I think I was off frame for a second. Perfect. Take a little bit of yellow. You're just going to blend that in a little bit on the sides as well. So this is how to make a older bruise, from younger to older. Just make sure that it isn't too yellow, as in not neon shining in places, because you want it to look like an injury. If you want to make it a little bit older, so that is a really good bruise. That's like an old bruise. The yellow is a bit too prominent, so you could darken that yellow. I'm going to add a tiniest bit of blue, only because it just adds the tiniest bit of depth to the bruise. A little more. think I probably could have used this hand instead of bending my arm the whole time. Hindsight. Gorgeous. Alright, so that is an older bruise. That is a more of a newer bruise. Bruises. And I hope that helped. Sorry, pause that. Had to re-scrap everything of what I was doing. Latex. I had latex in a previous video before I had to cut it, so it'll be like just before this one. And I was talking about how latex is great if you don't have allergies to it. Now I'm just going to apply it to my hand because I'll show you something really cool we can do with this. Latex works great for when you're wanting to do wounds, lifted skin, because it looks like a thin layer of your skin lifting up. It starts off white, but then sort of dries into like a clearish color. And I'll show you something really cool when that's dry. Now, for us, we're going to do an eye look. Now, to do that, I was thinking about doing scar wax around it, but it doesn't look like that's going to stick, which means we're going to use scar wax as a builder. Which means I'm going to need more flour in this, because I think I've made mine too sticky. Alright, and we're back. I just paused it off screen for a second to free-fix my scar wax. Now, I'm going to use a cotton pad. Finding a cotton pad. We're going to place this over the eye. I think I'm going to do this eye because it's my weaker eye. And if I do both, I won't be able to see, and then that would guess anyway. Now, if you use sponges, are always great to use for latex. You can use fingers too if you want, but the thing is, you just want it to glue on. So, this is the day I lose my sponges. You get the sponge and you're just going to dab it on because you want the latex, but be mindful of your brows. Latex will rip your hair off. Going to lift that off so it should just stay on in theory. I'm just going to put my latex on my board and I'm going to apply it more. We go down this way. You want it on the cotton pad and the skin because you want that thing to stick. If the cotton pad starts coming off, do not worry. It actually adds more to the effect. Try not to get your hair though. Whatever latex sticks to, it rips off unless you have Bruises. No, Bruises is the counterpart. You want spirit gum. Warm water will also work. If you have allergies to latex, there are things called Bruises. Latex is great for sticking things down and making things look more skin-like. Sorry, that got really close to my eye. Oh no! It's fine. What's fun about a lot of SFX is that you can really just use anything you have at home. You can use tissue paper, you can use cotton pads, you can use cling wrap. As long as you're getting the desired effect you want, things tend to work out where they need to. Now I'm going to take the first layer off because I don't really need that. And this actually works pretty well for what I'm going for. A bit more. Just really dabbing that on. Like that, and we're just going to wait for that to dry. The latex will take a bit to dry, so while that's drying, we can actually work on the other parts of the face. Now, we could just leave this and then make this really dark. Well, the plan is to make it very dark. But if we're going to have a lot of an injury here, we need to have a lot of bruising and stuff going on. We want to work on building up this area to look. We're going to slunk this in, so what we're going to do is that we're going to build around the eye so it looks like it's out. The eye is protrude. It's out a little bit so it looks sunken more in. To do that, we do need to add a bit of red around. So while this is drying, what we will do is that we will use a bit of our paints that we have already laid out, and we're going to just redden up the areas around the latex. We will add colour to the latex as well. It's just as we're waiting for it to dry. Let's see, we'll use this brush. I'm like one-eyed as I do this. I could have planned this better. Let's see. Use these paints, our Bruise wheel. I'll mix them together. They both work for what I'm going for. I just want to add a little bit of red on top. Not too much. So waiting for that latex to dry. Take some from the ground. I'm just adding tiniest bits. Sorry, I'm grabbing another sponge. The goal is that we're just trying to darken the area up. As we wait for the latex to dry. Makeup doesn't always have to be pretty. I know that a lot of people like pretty makeup, but sometimes it's just fun to do a bit of a horror look, a bit of a scary look. There's nothing stopping us. As long as you're not traumatizing the neighborhood too much, she'll be fine. I love terrifying kids. No, not really. Oh, I like doing it on Halloween. Or at least terrifying my sister and my mum. I don't live with her. She lives like 40 minutes away from me. But when I used to do makeup looks at her house, I'd walk into it when she was asleep, because I always used to do it late at night. And I'd be like, "Hey mum, check this." I'd be like, "Oh, that's nice, Jade." Half asleep. And then the next morning, when she'd actually see the look, because I'd send her a picture of it so she'd see in the morning, she'd be like, "What on earth is that, Jade?" I'm like, "Oh, but it's the look you said looked nice last night." She goes, "When did you ask me this?" And I'm like, "When you were asleep." Because, you know, that's prime time to not ask your parents and show your parents stuff, is when they're asleep. Anyway, I'm just darkening up around the eye. Oh yeah, I think you're working out, Millhouse. Give that a little bit more time to dry before we start adding product to it, but that does give us a really good start around it. Oh yeah, that looked nice. Pick up my brush again, and I did realize that we did sort of miss the nose area. So I'm just gonna go around the nose. Grab my sponge. Or we just want to buff that out a little bit. Still wet, but it's not as wet as it used to. Let's look at our hand. Hand's nearly dry, so we can do something with that next. Now, since we're going to put more black in the center, we're going to do a black and red, so we can probably start with that now. We use one of my deeper brushes, and what we need to do is get our colors. Man, this sucks, having one eye. You almost can't see anything. Alright, let's get the colours. Alright, so since we're trying to darken out the area, we're definitely going to need a black, and we're going to put that on the board. Definitely going to need more of that red. Definitely more purple. Put that on our bruise area. A bit more blue. So again, we can really help it sunken out with those colours. We're going to, now, normally what I'd do is that I'd make some fake blood for this. But alas, like everything in my life, I lose everything. It's a miracle I haven't lost my head. So, right, we're going to pick up some red first, of those deep two red tones, and we're going to dab that into the center. Now we are starting on white, so it will take a little bit to buff out into a deep color. Take some Vaseline. Just gonna dab it on. This works really well, cotton buds, because it really puffs out the eye. Just be mindful you don't want it accidentally lifting. Darken it just a little bit. Now, of course it looks strange at the moment. That's okay, because we're just trying to cover it up a little bit. Really make it look like an injury. This is a long process. Snazzy, chic. Some would say gorgeous. Others might scream in terror. Actually, let's get some yellow. Tiniest bits of a yellow. Oh. Made it too dark. Hang on. Let me grab from my prime palette. Little bits of yellow to make it look like infections. A little bit of blue. Not heaps. Oh, I think I've done too much blue and I don't know how to fix that. My goal is to blend. It actually doesn't look that bad, actually. I have a lot of self-doubt at times. Cute, chic, some would even say modern. Some might say French. It's modern. Don't laugh. It's Claire, it's French. Really? Yes. Alright, now, time for scar wax. Just gonna model it with my hands. We're going to apply this sort of like around the eye a little bit. To pat it and push it up. This is how we're going to blend it into the skin. Is raised. We want it to look like something's going on here. If this looked better without the scar wax, you can let me know. Or don't. I really don't mind. So what I'm doing is that I'm adding the scar wax around the eye because we want it to look like something's happened with the eye. What we're going to do is that we're going to colour this more to my skin tone, and then we're going to add a little bit of red. Actually, this is pretty close to my skin tone, so what we're going to do is that we're going to colour over it. We're going to blend it in and then we're going to colour over it because we want it to look like something's happened. Oh no, actually no, that works. And now what we're doing is that we're just trying to blend it in. We'll use a little bit of Vaseline to blend that into their skin. We want this to blend in. You can have harsh lines where you want the skin to be lifted, but you can't have harsh lines on where it blends in, because then it doesn't look like you're blending into the skin. It just looks like you have something on the skin. You want it to blend in as much as possible. You want it to look like something's wrong with the skin. Hardest part of SFX is making it look as, you want it to look as realistic as possible, but not too realistic that you scare people. But you want to scare people at the same time. But you don't want it to look, you want it to look realistic, but you don't want it to look fake realistic, I guess. So I'm just sort of rubbing this in. I really enjoy SFX. My goal is one day to work in movies or do short films or work with other people. A few people have seen my work and they go, oh wow, you should, like, not people who have seen it in person, just like other people who don't make a for, and they go, you should. And a part of me is like, yeah, no, part of me is like, oh, but am I really that good though? Because of course there are other people. Just going to push this out a little bit. Oh yeah, everything's looking up Millhouse. It looks quite nice. Blend that out a little bit more. Oh yeah, that looks nice. Oh no, I've lost my glove. Hang on. Wipe my hands. That looks nice. Quite glad on that actually. What I'm doing now is adding a little bit of foundation. I'm going to do so I'm going to blend this into the skin. To do that, I need to blend me to the skin tone. This is my shade. Well, I've always thought it was my shade, but looking on this, I'm like, ooh. Damn. No brushes to help me blend. Actually, give me one sec. I digged for a second, that's what I did off screen, to find me a brush that I could buff the makeup a little bit. So right now I'm just applying a foundation to my skin to blend out the foundation so it all looks like realish skin. So you want to match your skull wax to the skin, or then it doesn't look like or then it just looks like makeup on the skin, and that's not really what we're going for. Unless it's what you're going for, of course. So once you have pretty solid, it would be better if I was using a better brush, but this is my powder brush, but this works out great for what I need. It's an older one, so I'll move it to my SFX collection. Now I'm not thinking of doing a glimmer on the other side, not really what I want. gorgeous. Now let's add color. So we're going to grab these ones again, the Bruises palettes, and we're going to take in that red. We're going to add it here around the eye. So we want this area to look inflamed. We want this area to look like it hurts. SFX makeup is all about building. You want to build up your products. It's going to look crazy at first, but you want to build up your colors. To build things up like blood though, if you don't have SFX blood, you just want to build up your reds from lighter to darker. And then everything will just work out where it needs to. There we go. Take a bit of my darker red, and I'm just going to put that in some places as well. Whoops. Lay that back down. That's kind of gross, actually. She's not a maraca, stop shaking. Okay, now to grab a brush. This is the brush we used for scar wax earlier, which is going to pick up that red again. Dab it to see if that's still the color we want. Oh yeah, we're just gonna take that around a little bit. We wanna just darken up that area. Want it to look like injury. Something's happened. That's what we're going for. You really want to make, not too much though, like you don't want it to look like you have a red face. You just want to buff it out just enough that it looks like something's gone wrong. There we go. I think that's where I'll close it for tonight. That is a look, and I hope you enjoyed it. Ta-ta!